Andy Johnson. Today we are looking at close reading and shared reading. Close reading is a derivative or a form of shared reading, so let us take a look at shared reading first. And with everything, keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. Shared reading, the whole class reads a common text together. So conversation is created around this common text. It enables students of varying ability levels, reading levels, to interact with concepts, vocabularies, and ideas in an authentic reading context. Now, just because you have a reading disability or a learning disability does not mean that you have a thinking disability. We do not want these students to fall behind conceptually in their word knowledge or in their exposure to sentence structures and ideas. So this is one way to make sure that they have exposure and interact with these concepts, vocabularies, and sentence structures. It can be done in large group or in small group. Everyone has access to a common text, you're reading it, and the teacher has inserted questions and activities within the text that students respond to. That is the essence of a shared reading activity. And I would encourage you to start small and get a larger one after a while. So how do you read it? Methods for reading the text. This shared conversation around a text that you read. Never ever use round robin reading. That wrecks everything. Rarely should you use round robin reading in any context. However, all students need to see the text, need to have access to the text. So how do you do it? Well, in the primary grades, of course, the teacher can read the text aloud in a small book like that. And remember, activities and questions are inserted, needs to be planned. Big book where the teacher reads, points to the words, questions, activities inserted, planned ahead. Sometimes a teacher uses choral reading, points to the words and the class reads together, creates the scaffold by the use of his or her voice. Or echo reading where the teacher reads a line and the students echo or read it back. That can be done with big book, or if they have access to a screen or some other technical form of the book. Use that, I would say, kindergarten, first grade, maybe early second. All right, third grade and above, intermediate grades, we'll call them. You want to, students, you can plan this around a novel excerpt, a textbook, magazine, newspaper article, or even a website. All right, an excerpt from a novel or textbook. You could have photocopies of this excerpt. However, in this day and age, that probably rarely happens. You can put it on a smart board, an iPad, a PowerPoint, a computer, a screen of some sort. However you do it, all students need to see and easily be able to read this text, upon which you are going to have a shared conversation, or of which, in which you're going to have a shared conversation with this text. So how do you do it? Well, the teacher could read as students follow along. You could ask students to read the text silently. That's another option. You could do ERT, everyone read to, where you point to a designated spot in the text, students read, and then you have the question or activity. Everybody read to the second paragraph on page 13. I'll be asking you to identify one interesting or important idea. Look up when you're finished. Notice that this invites students to read with purposeful intent. They're reading for a specific purpose. That is always a good thing. ERT, everyone reads too. And then they wait for the question or the activity. So that's where you put the question or activity. Now, if students read at a slower rate, or maybe they don't comprehend everything, that's okay, because the discussion and the activities in large group and small group and turn to a neighbor enables them to assimilate the important points through these activities, through this discussion. That's ERT. That's a great one. You could do every other, where the teacher reads one paragraph or section aloud and the students read the next one silently. That is just fine. Usually I want to have an activity right after the student silent reading. But probably what you want to do is mix it up. Maybe you'll have some of the Teacher read, maybe you have some of the read silently, the ERT, mix it up. There is no standard formula, no algorithm that works best for every teacher, every situation. Always adopt and adapt. So to plan, and this takes a little planning. Step 1, select and preview the text to be read. Not every text works this way, and you're looking for an excerpt. Decide on the type of reading material. Will it be photocopied? Will it be on a screen, an iPad? Decide on how you're going to enable students to have access to this. 3, decide on the mode of reading. And again, within the same shared reading activity, you will probably want to have different modes, at least 2 within that shared reading experience. Design a pre-reading activity. Pre-reading activity creates a scaffold to enable students to read successfully. Some sort of structure, a preview of some sort. And then design and insert questions and activities within the text at specific places. So in your planning, you'd say page 3, and we'd be able to actually see the question or activity. And then design a post-reading activity to get students to interact, to extend or apply some of the ideas found in that text. Now, types of questions and activities, well, of course, for narrative text, it would look a little different than expository text, but here are some examples of pre-reading types of questions or activities, and you can see during reading, and you can pause. These are just some examples of the types of questions or activities. And of course, you can buy my book. These are all in there. This isn't a buy my book video, by the way, but they are in my book. And some other ones, you can stop and you can get a sense of the types of questions or activities that you might use with a shared reading for narrative text. Expository text, we read it different than narrative text, informational text, textbook, pre-reading, preview. Okay, good, good, good. During reading, here are some examples here. And these are just examples, adopt and adapt. Okay, that was shared reading. Close reading, not close, but close reading. The official definition: thoughtful, critical analysis of a text that focuses on significant details or patterns in order to develop a deep, precise understanding of the text, form, craft, meanings, etc. Okay, that sounds a little more complicated than it actually is. Why is it in education we always complicate up things? Gotta keep it simple, simple it up. Essentially, it's the same as shared reading, except students read the text silently first or with limited pre-reading activities. As they're reading, you invite them to maybe identify important vocabulary words. They can put a dot, pencil dot in the text. Words they do not know or understand, record on a sheet of paper. Important ideas or questions they might have. You can do any or all of these. Then you go back and carefully examine parts of the text, and you use the same shared reading activity types of questions and activities. And the teacher decides which parts are read worthy or the important parts. And this is probably works best with expository text. Narrative text, the purpose is to read and enjoy the story. So what difference does it make if you know the main idea or the resolution? All right, you read to enjoy the story. So close reading and shared reading. Close reading really works best with expository text. Here's the thing about close reading, having students read it silently first. I never, ever want to frustrate a reader. If you're using it in a multi-level setting, students should never be asked to read anything at their frustration level. And in a general ed classroom or any classroom, you could have readers reading 2 or 3 levels above, 2 or 3 levels or more below. You don't want to frustrate them. They should be reading at their independent or instructional level. So close reading, I would tend to do it in smaller, more homogeneous groups rather than large groups. But it is another strategy for your teacher toolbox. Adopt and adapt.